It's Tuesday night, so you know what that means. We discuss all things men's and women's hockey on where they will end up in the overall standings. And men's and women's basketball take the court to beat the likes of Hartford and Brown. We recap all that and more starting now. Welcome to Studio 125. I'm your host, Mike Singer. Alongside me, I have Clever Streich and Matthew Mugno. How you guys doing?
I'm feeling great, Matt. The man, the myth, the Mugno. I'm so glad to be with you here tonight on another Tuesday night. It's an edition of Bobcat Breakdown. We got basketball and hockey debate. How you feeling?
Ever, Mr. Mugno is in the building. I'm very excited for my first rodeo, Clever.
Let's get into it, Mike.
Awesome. Let's go. Following the men's ice hockey game on a chilly Friday night, they played St. Lawrence and had an offensive outburst, scoring 8 goals. Matt, do you think the Clarkson game sparked what the offense needed?
No, I don't think this game alone should mark the first time we saw the Bobcats scoring with prowess, and they really dominated that game, but they've scored more than 3 goals in a plethora of games this season. They've scored 5 goals against some tougher competition in the Fighting Hawks of North Dakota and of the Sun Devils. They won back-to-back games on that weekend when they played the Arizona State Sun Devils. They scored 5 goals in both games, and Oliver Chow had a hat trick in the second game. So I think Quinnipiac has really shown they have that offensive strength, and they've had some games where they've had to play defense, as they did against Yale, where they won 3-0, but they still spotted 3 goals in that game in that shutout win on the road. So I really think Quinnipiac has been able to establish offense early on in this season, and I don't think it's a concern. I think the concern is more in their power play and capitalizing and scoring on opportunities they create on their power play, but goal scoring they're able to score goals.
Right, I'd agree with you on that, Matt, and it's been night and day. At the beginning of the month, we saw a couple of games in ECAC conference play where they take on Yale on the road. I had the opportunity to go with QBSN on the road to that game, and it was a fantastic defensive game that the Bobcats played. 3-0 victory in the first game of the Battle of Whitney Avenue in over 600 days. They also defeated Brown 1-0, but the one caveat that I did notice is that the power play and the scoring was not there. During the game against the States, they went 1 for 4 on the power play, and the offense showed up in droves. The top producers came out, and they did what they needed to do in order to get the victory. They had a 2-2 tie against Clarkson, where they were trailing 2-0 at one point in the game. And that was a concern for the Bobcats, because the Bobcats were, I believe, number 4 at that point in time. And at that point in time, Clarkson was an unranked team, so being down 2-0, they were able to bring it back, get into the shootout. They were able to take the victory in that game. But an 8-0 game against St. Lawrence, a victory of that caliber, Ethan DeYoung, his first hat trick. He was named the ECAC Player of the Week. He had an incredible game. There were 6 different Bobcats that scored multi-point games, including Ty Smolanek, who put up 2 goals and an assist in the game. And this was the ECAC Hockey Championship game last year. This was the Light Law Cup Championship that the Bobcats lost. And this was a big offensive burst, and it's exactly what the Bobcats needed at that point in time.
Moving across the locker room now, the women's ice hockey team won the Nutmeg tournament, beating Yale in the first game and then beating UConn 3-2 in overtime. Clever, will this win help the Nutmeg tournament? Will it help them going forward as they face the number 1 Wisconsin Badgers?
The win in the Nutmeg tournament is another huge accomplishment on a list of what seems like a never-ending accomplishment list for the Bobcats this year. This hardware is going to only help their momentum as they take on their biggest challenge yet in the turn of the new year. They proved themselves as the top Connecticut NCAA women's ice hockey team. They take out UConn, the then number 6 Yale Bulldogs, and the Sacred Heart Pioneers. They didn't face the Sacred Heart Pioneers, but they still won this bracket for the 9th time in their program's history, the 2nd straight time after a 2019 Nutmeg Championship. This was a 7-game undefeated streak that they also snapped against Yale. And guess who began that undefeated streak all the way back 7 games ago? Who handed them their last regulation loss? Also Quinnipiac. It's the sort of thing where the Nutmeg Championship is really going to help them in their road as they try and take on a big challenge in number 1 Wisconsin.
They need those confidence-build wins, and they need to establish that they are this dominant team. Heading into this Wisconsin game that's coming up, Wisconsin is 15-0-1. They have an average of 5 goals per game. We're just talking about the men's hockey team and how they need to score more goals, or they are scoring at that level. 5 goals a game is an incredible feat for Wisconsin. They've scored 80 goals on 678 shots. So Quinnipiac is going to have their biggest challenge on their hands, but the notable aspect of the women's hockey team's better performances this season is their better performances are from the net out. The good old hockey adage is good hockey teams are built from the net out, and Corinne Schroeder has been a dominant force for Quinnipiac. She's one of, if not the best goaltender in college hockey. So I really think that Quinnipiac is able to get those wins with a strong backbone, but they'll have a challenge and they'll have their hands full with Wisconsin even after establishing that they're this great team over the Nutmeg tournament.
Now, Matt, after winning the Nutmeg Championship, does QU deserve to be ranked 3rd in the country?
I think the numbers speak for themselves for sure. It may not tell the whole story, but it certainly sheds light as to how successful this team has been to begin this season, heading into some of the tougher league matchups that are coming up, like the Wisconsin matchup that we just alluded to. They were down 2-0 in the Yale game in the Nutmeg tournament, and they were able to win that game. They only lost to Princeton 1-0 in that game, so they only surrendered 1 goal. And overall, I think it's been a 360 of what their season was like last season. And the mark of a good hockey team is they're able to come back in games. They're able to win games in more than one way. I really think that it's the best start in the women's hockey history, in program history, with 15-1-2 start. So I really think the numbers speak for themselves. And when you look at the stories across the entire season so far, they really are a dominant force on the ice.
I'd agree with that, Matt. And the only loss that is the one mark on the Bobcats' record this year, that 1-0 loss to Princeton, they played so competitively in that game. That was the only time that we even saw them show any sort of faltering or weakness. There was 2 games that they did tie against the then number 9 Providence, but they've picked up victories over top 10 teams in back-to-back games in the last few weeks. They had a 4-0 victory, an absolute statement victory over the then number 5, now number 6 Colgate Raiders, the reigning ECAC women's ice hockey champions from last year, the ones that sent the Bobcats packing way back in the class of 1965 arena way back in March. And they also took a victory in the game against the Yale Bulldogs. Then they were the then number 6, now number 7, and now they've risen to number 4. A couple of months ago, I had a take on Bobcat Breakdown where we sort of talked about how far this team can go. Let's take a look at that, and let's see how they look right now. With this being the deepest Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team in recent memory, how far can they go? They could be a top 3 team in the ECAC this year, and I think that statistic poll of the preseason poll is just not showing the entire story. This could be the year that the Bobcats draw a line in the sand and make a statement.
They definitely recognize that this is their time.
This is the all-in year. The all-in year. And it seems like they have gone all in. They've taken some big victories over top ECAC teams, and they will continue to climb in the standings. I said that they were going to be a top 3 team in the conference. They might be a top 3 team in the country.
Have you received your report card yet? Well, here's the women's ice hockey report halfway through the season so far. Matt, who's your MVP of the year?
My MVP of the year, Corinne Schroeder. No doubt, the stats are undeniable. One of, if not the best goaltender in the nation. And in Boston, she was at Boston University. She was one of the most dominant goaltenders in their program's history. Now she's here at Quinnipiac, and she's having another dominant season. So I truly believe that she is the MVP of this season. It starts from in the net and out.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that take. But if I had to talk about my MVP, I'd have to say Taylor House, the graduate forward. She leads the team with 3 game-winning goals, which is 5th in the nation. And she also leads the team in goals with 9 this year, 4th on the team with 13 points, as you can see on the screen right there. This is such a great season for Taylor House. I'd liken her to Chris Kreider in terms of the breakout that she's had. She's come in clutch in so many instances. She had a goal against Yale and 1 goal, 1 assist in the Nutmeg Classic against UConn. She is such a dynamic player, and she also leads by example. As a graduate forward, she's able to show the younger players how to get things done, how Bobcats hockey works. She has been the outright MVP in my opinion.
Now, Clever, who is your outbreak player of the year?
My outbreak or breakout player of the year, in my opinion, has been Corrine Schroeder. The graduate goaltending transfer has been unbelievable and absolutely remarkable for the Bobcats. She's 8-1-1 through her appearances so far, 3 shutouts, which is tied for 3rd in the nation. That's not the only stat that is going to blow your mind. A .796 goals against average. That is number 1 out of all NCAA women's ice hockey goaltenders right now. Her .966 save percentage is 2nd in the nation. And Matt, you know hockey, those numbers are absolutely unreal. The form that Schroeder showed at Boston University in her previous undergraduate days really shows that she's just translated her play amazingly to the ECAC.
I agree. Schroeder has been a dominant force, but for my breakout player, I'm going to go with Sadie Peart. She's been instrumental in the team's success in its first in 6 games. She is halfway to her career high in points. She started at the 3rd line this season and helped make the line formidable, and that makes a team deep. Depth cannot be stressed, and it's the most instrumental aspect of a hockey team if you have depth in goal scoring and on deeper lines. So I would say Sadie Peart is my breakout player.
Right, I would agree. Sadie Peart, the leading scorer for the Bobcats. She has been one of the instrumental players in their success this year.
Now, Matt, who is the rookie of the year?
For my rookie of the year, I'm going to say Anne Frederick Node. 7 assists in 14 games as a first year. That's very impressive. And she's made her way onto the scoring sheet as a first year with playing with a line mate that she played with in the U18 Canadian team. So she's from Montreal. She has that Canadian pedigree. And she plays with Mia Labad, who was on that team with her. They've formed a chemistry. She'll find the back of the net soon enough. Currently, she's injured right now. But once she returns, I could see she scores a few goals. Is a playmaker on the ice as a first year. That is great to see that you have a first year player who's a playmaker on deeper lines too. As I said, depth is so crucial to a hockey team.
I'll have to agree with some of your points there. Node is a very solid player, but my rookie of the year, in my opinion, so far for this team has been Maya Labad. She is the reigning ECAC Hockey Rookie of the Week, and for good reason. She had her first multi-point game of her career against Cornell. She has a 2-game goal streak against the Cornell 4-0 shutout, and then the then number 5 Colgate Raiders. She's been all over the ice. She was scoring in her first ever game as a Bobcat way back at the exhibition against UConn, which was all the way back in September at this point. She's made an instant impact, and she's been my Rookie of the Year pick for this team.
Clever, what are your predictions for the rest of the year? Where will the Bobcats end?
Well, it's really hard to say, but based upon this first half performance, where we've seen a 13-game undefeated streak, only 1 regulation loss, and defeats over some massive, massive top 10 teams in the entire country, I would say that at the minimum they're going to make the ECAC postseason, maybe even the ECAC finals. But I would say that the real benchmark to decide how far this team goes will be the next game against Wisconsin at the top of the year. They have a month off, which is going to be a bit of a momentum shift for them. They're going to have to keep up their momentum as they get into the new year. 2022 is going to be a pivotal year to decide how boom or bust this Bobcats team is. But I would absolutely say that they're going to go far. There's only 16 games left in the regular season, and the ECAC postseason is set to take place right here in Hamden, which is a huge home ice advantage. The Bobcats want that going into what might be the biggest tournament in program history.
I agree, Clever. I really think they have the potential to take this season and go very far. So I really think they have the potential to make noise in the playoff, if not go to the final and win the ECAC finals. I really think this team has they have a cohesive nature that covering the other sports teams here at Quinnipiac. This team really has a cohesive nature and that backbone that really separates them from the rest. 15-1-2. It's undeniable that this is the best start in program history. I think that they go to the playoff and they make noise. They can go further. I really do think the Wisconsin game is a huge benchmark, and as you said, the remaining 16 games. those big matchups will prove if they can take out juggernaut teams like a Wisconsin.
Wisconsin's been number one in every single poll this year in the USCHO poll. We'll have to see how the Bobcats fare in 2022.
It's time to take our first break of the night, but don't go anywhere as we discuss all things men's and women's basketball. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. It's here. It's here. Wait. What? I can't drive. What? My. Oh.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a unique mix of all kinds of things.
Come on, Joe, spot on this last one. There it is. Keep going with it. Leo.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made home ownership happen. Homeschooling yourself on loans, beefing up your credit score.
So I'm pre-approved.
You were like, yes! Sorry. Color coding listings, ticking boxes, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. Home sweet home. You aced house hunting. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
I know what you're thinking. I need a job.
I need a new career.
Well, I've been there.
I've been there.
I've been there. I wasn't happy with what I was doing.
After high school, I didn't have a plan.
I just wanted to start working.
I got laid off twice, but you gotta keep going.
You just need the right skills. Find an apprenticeship.
I found a 2-year IT program.
I found a medical course online.
I'm now a consultant in the tech space.
You have more options than you think. You can do this.
You will find something.
You will find something new.
Hey, welcome back. Let's move from the ice rink to the basketball court to discuss the latest with the men's and women's basketball teams. After losing 2 in a row to Indiana and George Washington, the women's basketball team were able to beat Hartford 113-64. Clever, after losing 2 games and coming so close in one, did they defeat Hartford? How did they defeat Hartford for the 6th time?
This was a historic game for the women's basketball team, and rightfully so. This was the highest scoring game in D1 program history. They win 113-64, and the lead up to this game was kind of interesting because they almost took number 4 Indiana to the brink. They had the lead at the half. Unfortunately, the Bobcats were not able to sustain that as they ended up dropping it to Indiana, but this game was an absolute statement for them. They were able to dominate possessions, and they were able to limit Hartford getting any chances to get back in the game. They had so much bench depth. They really used their starters well. The rotation was really, really strong. They were able to use a lot of players on the bench. All 12 players ended up participating in the game. 10 of them ended up scoring points, and this was a statement win for the Bobcats and a historic one at that.
Trish Fabry in the post-game press conference said it came down to 3 things. The key players, the big dogs showed up. It came down to communication and effort from all. Everyone on the bench, all those younger players that were coming off of the bench, they made contributions in the game. That is so key to success. As I just preached before with women's hockey with depth, you need that depth on the bench, and that can help you strategize in future games. Key players showing up, key players putting up those massive point totals. And of course, it comes down to simple things like communication, hard work, and effort. That's sometimes as simple as that, is showing up and getting the job done. So I think a few things, really the cohesiveness of this team is very impressive, and those few things that Trish Fabry said were the keys to winning that game.
Yeah, they played a complete game on both sides of the ball, both offensively and defensively, and they were able to completely rout Hartford.
Matt, what was the reason for the 113 points? Is this the highest scoring D1 game in their era?
Yeah, so the reason for this win was because Trisha put out all the players on her bench. All 12 players scored. 5 players reached double figures. So they expanded the roster from a hard 7 to 8 rotation to playing 14 players overall in the game. 13 of those players had points. That showed Trish Fabry that she has a good and deep bench. It can help them strategize in future games. It's as simple as capitalizing and minimizing the errors you have. So scoring on your opportunities when you create those opportunities, finishing, having the key players show up, and communication on the court. Also the fact that they were able to establish 13 players scoring and making contributions. That's huge when they had a 7 to 8 player rotation the entire season thus far. So I think it was a huge victory, biggest in program history, and they were able to establish having more than just their starters making contributions.
Right. And what's amazing about this is that Fabry said this in the post-game press conference. This game allowed us to go deep into our bench, and looking at our last 3 games, we shortened the bench too much. So she was able to adjust, and she also said that we need to trust the players who are wearing the uniform a little bit more, and she did just that. A couple of junior talents came out and had really big games. So Jada Bonner, a career-high 18 points. She led the team in this game. Her previous career high was 13. That was standing back from her first year with the Bobcats. And another player that really stood out was Cortea Haywood. This was a 17-point effort for her, and she was perfect the entire day. 7 for 7 on the floor, 3 for 3 beyond the arc, and she just had a great game. Another first-year standout that really sort of stepped up in this game was Raven Douglas. The first-year guard had 13 points, which was a career high for her up to this point in her brief career with the Bobcats. And the team depth and the precision that they had was really emphasized in this game. 67 of the points that the Bobcats put up were from the bench, and they had a complete effort throughout this game against Hartford.
It has not been pretty as of late for the men's basketball team, losing their latest game 72-61. Now, instead of giving thanks over the Thanksgiving holiday, Quinnipiac had a combined 43 turnovers on only a shooting percentage of 41. Clever, what was the reason for this lack of play on both sides of the ball?
Yeah, this game against Brown was difficult for the men's basketball team. It was really a poor defensive game for Brown as well. And there were openings for Quinnipiac to come back in, capitalizing on offense, and nothing really clicked. It seems like some moments they had really great glimpses of defense and offense, but there were 23 turnovers that were committed in this game by the Brown Bears, and yet in fast break points, they were outscored 15-18 by Brown. They were tied 22-22 in points coming off of turnovers as well. So even though the Bears did commit more turnovers, it just ended up being that the Bobcats were not able to capitalize on many of them. And Baker Dunleavy also relies on the 3-ball a lot. He relies on points beyond the arc, and the Bobcats went 6 for 22, a 27.3 conversion rate on 3-pointers. Desi Jones, Taimu Shinnery, Kevin Marfo, 3 players completely miss all of their shots from the 3-point arc, and there's just not enough scoring to overcome the Bears.
Those are 3 key players you mentioned in Marfo and Shinnery. And Rigoni started off hot in that game and then cooled off. So getting contributions from your stronger players, your older players, that's very, without that, it's very difficult to win games. Also, as you mentioned, scoring on the rush, when you turn the ball over as many times as Quinnipiac had in that game, they struggled to capitalize on those opportunities. And I really think it comes down to, as you said, Baker Dunleavy mentioned in the post-game conference that they're still trying to figure things out with their game. But their identity is at the 3-point arc, and they need to be able to score from there in order to win. If that's your identity, they have to be able to play to that identity.
They have to be
score.
stronger at the 3-point arc, and they have to create more chances where they convert at the 3-point arc.
The men's basketball team has yet to play a MAC team, and they play St. Peter's on Friday. Matt, will the Bobcats break this losing streak as they play St. Peter's?
I'm not sure if they may, but I think the losing streak has to break in order to right the ship earlier in MAC play, rather than playing catch-up later on in the season against rival opponents and schools that you're going to be battling for position in the standings for. Winning cures all, and a win and to rise above 500 against the struggling St. Peter's can help settle some of the earlier season woes that the Bobcats have been experiencing on the court.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But as Jack Means said way back on the Halloween edition of Sports Pause, St. Peter's is one of the scariest teams in the MAC. 3 players that really do come to mind with that: Doug Eder, Daryl Banks III, Casey Ndefo, who is the 2-time straight MAC Defensive Player of the Year. This is a really hard game and a pivotal game for the Bobcats. It's the start of conference play. Anything can happen in conference play. But with their performances against Brown, they did pull out a win earlier on against CCSU. The MAC play is a reset point for them. So anything could happen here, but they need strong performances from guys like Jacob Rigoni and Kevin Marfo in order to get the win over St. Peter's.
Now it's time to take our final break of the night. But don't go anywhere as we discuss the QBSN Game of the Week and, of course, Final Roars. We'll be right back.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfie. Nailed it. We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at our QBSN Game of the Week. It was a historic weekend for the women's basketball team as they have set a new record versus Hartford this past weekend. Hartford commuted down I-91 as they took on the Bobcats at the People's United Center with a final score of 113-64. Quinnipiac has set a Division I program scoring record. Team effort was the driving force to make history as all 12 players participated in the game and all five players reached double digits. Sajada Booner had 18 points. C.T. Haywood added 17 points. Haywood also was 7 for 7 from the field, including 3 for 3 from the 3, and Booner shot 4 for 4 from the floor. This is the 6th straight win versus Hartford for the Bobcats. The Bobcats are set to face Yale December 1st at the People's United Center. Now it's time for our final roars. Matthew, take it away.
Contributions need to be made from everyone as the Bobcats demonstrated against a weaker Hartford team moving forward, heading into MAC play. It was a confidence boost after 2 tough losses, beating Hartford handily. They now have 6 straight wins coming into a home game against Yale, who they typically beat. They expanded their roster from a hard 7 to 8 player rotation, as I mentioned before, to playing 14 players. 13 of those 14 had points, showing Trish Fabry that she has a good and deep bench. It can help them strategize in future games. This game is a spirit booster in front of home fans and showed Trish Fabry that this team is deep and the younger athletes had a chance to show what they are capable of, which will only add elements to the team's games heading into MAC play.
Fall sports have come to a close for this year as the Quinnipiac volleyball team was eliminated from the MAC tournament semifinals by Ryder. The succeeded Bobcats came close to pulling off a Cinderella run after a 5-set win over number 3 Marist, but the clock struck midnight on Kyle Robinson's squad, signaling the end of an era in Quinnipiac volleyball. No longer will we see the familiar sights of players like Maggie Baker, Nicole Migliosi, and Georgia Saleppi on the hardwood floor, as this year's class of talented seniors were set to depart from the team, creating an opportunity for new young players to rise to the occasion. Next year, who should we be looking out for? First years Favel Kimzo-Mo and Alexander Tenen may be the answer, as they've already played their way into the starting lineups while making huge impacts statistically. Mo led the team in digs this season with 388, and Tenen tied the team high in kills with 14 in the MAC semifinal loss to the Bronx. Perhaps the Bobcats' future is best epitomized by Coach Kyle Robinson's quote, "You've got to take these moments and have them be the catalyst for bigger and better things." The Bobcats will look to return next fall with a re-energized and hungry roster who have a lot to prove.
That's all the time we have now, folks. Thanks for tuning in on this chilly Tuesday night from Hamden. I hope you enjoyed the show. To stay tuned for all things Quinnipiac sports, go to q30tv.com. Thank you for tuning in, and we wish you all a wonderful rest of your Tuesday night, and we hope to see you next week right here on Bobcat Breakdown. Good night, folks.